Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. Summer Newman's shadow looms large over Genoa City once again, and this time her potential return threatens to detonate everything Kyle Abbott and Claire Newman have been desperately trying to hold together, because Summer has always been the one person who sees too much, knows too much, and refuses to ignore red flags, especially when it comes to betrayal, deception, and anyone who dares to endanger her son. Before she ever left for Italy, Summer had already pieced together ample evidence that Claire Newman was not who she pretended to be, and that unsettling intuition hasn't faded with distance or time. Summer saw the cracks in Claire's story, noticed the way she maneuvered around sensitive Abbott and Newman matters, and sensed the quiet manipulation beneath the polished exterior. Back then, Kyle dismissed Summer's fears as jealousy, paranoia, or the residue of their toxic romantic history, but history has a way of proving Summer right, and that truth is precisely what could make her return so explosive. Kyle himself once swore, in a moment of raw fury and protective instinct, that he would kill Claire if she ever betrayed him or endangered his family, and now that vow hangs over everything like a loaded gun. With the Abbotts already under siege thanks to Victor Newman's relentless vendetta, the timing of Kyle's urgent message to Summer couldn't be worse, or more revealing. JABOT is in chaos, having gone offline in a dramatic attempt to thwart a sophisticated AI-driven attack that everyone knows has Victor's fingerprints all over it, and while the move was meant to protect the company, the fallout has been brutal. Negative press has painted JABOT as incompetent, outdated, and vulnerable, and investors are whispering about collapse. Since Marchetti operates under the JABOT umbrella, Kyle has every legitimate reason to reach out to Summer and brief her on the latest developments, especially given her stake in the fashion house and her sharp business instincts. December 18th could easily mark a business-driven call, one rooted in damage control, strategy, and the need for unity, but nothing in Kyle's life is ever just business, especially where Summer is concerned. Beneath the surface, alarm bells are already ringing, because Kyle is currently entangled in a dangerous alliance with Claire Newman, working together on a covert takedown plot against Audra Charles. It's a risky move, built on fragile trust, and one wrong step could expose secrets that were never meant to see the light of day. If Summer were to be looped in as a third ally, the dynamic would shift instantly and irrevocably. Summer doesn't play games, doesn't tolerate half-truths, and doesn't protect people who don't deserve it. If she senses that Claire is manipulating Kyle, or worse, using him as a pawn, Summer will not hesitate to intervene, even if it means detonating Kyle's current relationship to save him from himself. And then there's the darker possibility, the one that truly explains the urgency in Kyle's voice and the weight behind his message. Matt Clark, also known as Mitch Bacall, the unhinged predator who is rapidly becoming the most dangerous wildcard Genoa City has seen in years. Matt is desperate, ruthless, and driven by the need for leverage, and as his net tightens around the Newman family, no one connected to Victor is truly safe. Summer, as Harrison Abbott's adoptive mother, understands that better than anyone. Harrison isn't just an Abbott, he's Victor Newman's great-grandson, a living, breathing pressure point that someone like Matt could exploit without hesitation. The thought alone would be enough to send Summer into full protective mode, and Kyle knows it. If Matt is targeting the Newmans from every angle, then Harrison is vulnerable simply by existing, and that terrifying reality may force Kyle and Summer to confront a decision they never thought they'd revisit, sending Harrison back to Italy, far away from Genoa City, Victor's enemies, and Matt's sinister reach. Such a move would be drastic, emotional, and potentially devastating for Kyle, but Summer has never hesitated to put her child's safety above her own happiness, or anyone else's. That looming choice only adds to the tension surrounding Summer's possible return, because if she comes back to town, she won't just bring questions, she'll bring consequences. Claire, in particular, has every reason to be on edge, because Summer remembers everything. She remembers the inconsistencies, the quiet betrayals, the moments when Claire's loyalty seemed to shift like sand. A face-to-face confrontation would be unavoidable, and if Summer presents proof of Claire's betrayal, or even hints that Kyle is being played, the fragile foundation of Kyle and Claire's relationship could collapse instantly. Kyle may think he's in control, balancing business disasters, vendettas, and dangerous alliances, but Summer has a way of cutting straight through denial and exposing the truth beneath. With Victor still pulling strings, JABOT under attack, Audra in the crosshairs, and Matt Clark spiraling deeper into menace, Summer's re-emergence could be the spark that ignites everything. Whether she returns physically or simply reasserts her influence from afar, one thing is certain, Summer Newman doesn't enter a storyline quietly, and if she believes Claire is a threat, to Kyle, to Harrison, or to the future of the Abbott family, she won't stop until that threat is neutralized, no matter how many relationships burn in the process, because in Genoa City, the most dangerous thing of all is a mother who knows the truth and refuses to stay silent. Summer had ample evidence of Claire's betrayal. Kyle swore he would kill her. Could Summer's return raise alarm bells for Claire and Kyle's relationship? Kyle Abbott will have an urgent message for Summer Newman. Kyle will reach out to his ex in Italy, so let's talk about the reason why and all the alarm bells that could go off. Things have been chaotic for the Abbotts lately due to all the prep work they've been doing against Victor Newman. JABOT has gone offline to thwart an AI program attack, but that doesn't mean Victor's been outsmarted. It'll seem like JABOT's turned into a giant failure based on all the negative press coverage. Since Marchetti falls under the JABOT umbrella, Kyle may want to touch base with Summer about all the latest details. It's possible JABOT-related business will be the reason for Kyle's message to Summer on December 18th. However, there are other reasons why Kyle might need to pass along updates. Kyle is teaming up with Claire Newman on an Audra Charles takedown plot, so it's possible there'll be room for a third ally if Summer wants in on this somehow. Then again, Kyle's message could be regarding a truly serious matter if this is about Matt Clark aka Mitch Bacall and the threat he poses. Since Summer is Harrison Abbott's adoptive mom, that makes Harrison one of Victor's great-grandkids and could leave him vulnerable. Matt needs leverage and will be going after the whole Newman family, so Harrison could be at risk, too. It's possible Kyle and Summer will consider a return trip to Italy for Harrison, who might be safer far away from Matt's sinister activities. Y&R fans know Matt is unhinged and capable of anything. So that's important to keep in mind. And as those tensions continue to coil tighter, the ripple effects of Kyle's message to Summer begin spreading through Genoa City long before she even decides whether to board a plane back from Italy, because the mere idea of Summer Newman re-entering this volatile equation is enough to make everyone involved start reassessing their positions, their secrets, and their survival strategies. Claire Newman, in particular, would feel the temperature in the room drop the moment Kyle mentions Summer's name, because Claire knows exactly what Summer is capable of when she believes someone has crossed a line involving family, loyalty, or a child. Summer doesn't need proof neatly wrapped in a bow, she operates on instinct sharpened by experience, and her instincts about Claire have never softened. Claire may try to present herself as Kyle's steadfast partner, his strategic equal in the Audra Charles takedown, but the truth is that her alliance with Kyle is built on convenience, not trust, and Summer has always been disturbingly good at sniffing out alliances that are destined to rot from the inside. Kyle, meanwhile, is torn apart by the timing of it all, because reaching out to Summer forces him to confront unresolved emotions he has buried under crisis after crisis. He tells himself the call is about JABOT, about Marchetti, about investor panic and damage control, but the urgency in his voice betrays something deeper. Fear. Fear that Victor is still several steps ahead despite JABOT's AI shutdown. Fear that Matt Clark is circling closer to Harrison. Fear that Claire may not be the safe harbor he convinced himself she was. And fear that Summer, once alerted, will refuse to stay on the sidelines. Summer has never been content to receive information passively, and if Kyle lays out the full scope of the chaos, Victor's vendetta, JABOT's battered public image, Audra's looming exposure, and Matt's escalating threats, Summer will immediately start connecting dots that Kyle hasn't allowed himself to see yet. From her perspective, the pattern is chillingly familiar. Victor creates pressure, a rogue element like Matt exploits it, and innocent people, especially children, end up as collateral damage. Harrison's name would be the point where Summer's voice hardens, where the conversation shifts from updates to ultimatums, because Summer will not gamble with her son's safety, not now, not ever. The idea of Harrison remaining in Genoa City while Matt Clark is actively seeking leverage against the Newmans would strike Summer as reckless, and she would push hard for immediate action, even if that means uprooting plans, straining Kyle's already fragile emotional state, or reigniting old arguments they thought were settled. Kyle may resist at first, insisting that moving Harrison again would be disruptive, that they can protect him, that Victor's security network is ironclad, but Summer has never trusted Victor's protection where his enemies are concerned, especially when those enemies are unpredictable and desperate. In her mind, Italy isn't a retreat, it's a shield. And if Kyle hesitates too long, Summer might make the decision herself, setting off another shockwave that leaves Kyle scrambling to catch up. That potential clash alone threatens to destabilize Kyle and Claire's relationship, because Claire has been positioning herself as Kyle's primary partner, emotionally, strategically, and personally, and Summer's decisive intervention would instantly undermine that dynamic. Claire may attempt to mask her unease, offering calm reassurances and strategic logic, but internally she would be spiraling, aware that Summer's return means scrutiny she cannot afford. Every move Claire has made, every secret she has buried, every compromise she has justified in the name of survival could be dragged into the light, and if Summer starts asking the wrong questions, Claire's carefully constructed persona could crack wide open. What makes the situation even more dangerous is that Kyle himself is no longer entirely certain where Claire stands. Working closely with her on the Audra Charles takedown has forced Kyle to confront how easily Claire operates in moral gray zones, how comfortable she is with manipulation, and how quickly she reframes questionable actions as necessary evils. Those traits once seemed useful, even admirable, but now, under the weight of Victor's pressure and Matt's looming threat, they feel ominous. Summer has always served as Kyle's moral mirror, reflecting back the parts of himself he tries to ignore, and her involvement would strip away his remaining illusions. If Summer suggests that Claire is playing a longer, darker game, one that ultimately serves Newman interests over Abbott ones, Kyle will be forced to revisit that moment when he swore he would kill Claire if she betrayed him, a vow that now echoes with terrifying relevance. Meanwhile, Victor Newman is far from oblivious. The possibility of Summer's return would not escape his notice, especially given her history of defying him, protecting Harrison, and refusing to be intimidated. Victor may publicly dismiss Summer as emotional or impulsive, but privately he knows she is a wild card capable of disrupting even his most carefully orchestrated schemes. If Victor senses that Kyle is leaning on Summer for support, he may escalate his tactics, pushing harder against JABOT, leaking additional damaging narratives to the press, or subtly encouraging Matt Clark's chaos to accelerate. Matt, for his part, thrives on disorder, and the idea of a child connected to both the Abbotts and the Newmans being moved overseas could either deter him or provoke him into acting faster. That uncertainty alone is enough to keep Summer awake at night, calculating risks and preparing contingencies, because she understands that Matt isn't motivated by logic but by desperation. He wants leverage, fear, and control, and the more cornered he feels, the more dangerous he becomes. If Summer returns to Genoa City under these conditions, it won't be for reconciliation or nostalgia, it will be for war. She will walk into Abbott and Newman territory with eyes wide open, ready to confront Claire, challenge Kyle, and stare down Victor himself if necessary. And that's precisely why her return could shatter the fragile equilibrium holding everyone together. Relationships that have survived betrayal, lies, and grudging alliances may not survive the truth Summer brings with her, because Summer doesn't negotiate with denial. She exposes it. Whether Kyle is ready or not, whether Claire can withstand the pressure or not, and whether Victor can control the fallout or not, one thing is becoming painfully clear: the moment Summer Newman steps back into this storyline, the countdown begins. Alarm bells will ring louder, secrets will surface faster, and the battle lines between loyalty and survival will be redrawn, because in a city already teetering on the edge, Summer's return isn't just a complication, it's a catalyst, and once she decides what must be done to protect Harrison, nothing and no one will be able to stop her. And once that countdown truly begins, the emotional and strategic stakes surrounding Summer Newman's return only intensify, because her presence doesn't just reopen old wounds, it exposes how dangerously thin the walls around Kyle Abbott's life have become. Kyle may tell himself he's prepared for Summer's scrutiny, that he's learned from their turbulent past and grown stronger through crisis, but deep down he knows that Summer has always been the one person who can see through his bravado and force him to confront truths he'd rather bury. As whispers of her possible return ripple through Abbott circles, Kyle's confidence starts to fracture, especially as he realizes that every choice he's made recently, aligning with Claire, trusting in Victor's containment strategies, downplaying Matt Clark's volatility, will now be judged through Summer's unflinching lens. And Summer, from her vantage point in Italy, won't arrive unprepared. She'll be gathering information, making calls, pulling strings through Marchetti and beyond, because if there's one thing Summer has mastered, it's turning knowledge into power. She'll want timelines, names, motives, and worst-case scenarios, and the more she learns, the more convinced she'll become that Genoa City has become a pressure cooker no child should be trapped inside. Harrison's safety will dominate her thinking, but Summer is also acutely aware that protecting him means dismantling threats at their source, not merely running from them. That mindset puts her on a collision course with Claire Newman, whose entire strategy revolves around staying 3 steps ahead of danger through manipulation rather than confrontation. Claire will sense this immediately, feeling the subtle shift in Kyle's energy as he starts asking sharper questions and hesitating before accepting her reassurances. Claire may try to spin Summer as a destabilizing influence, a reminder of Kyle's past mistakes, even a liability in the middle of a corporate and criminal war, but that argument will only backfire, because Kyle knows Summer has never been careless with Harrison's well-being. In fact, the more Claire tries to position herself as the reasonable alternative to Summer's intensity, the more Kyle will wonder why she feels so threatened by Summer's involvement in the first place. Those doubts will grow heavier when Summer inevitably circles back to the evidence she once had of Claire's betrayal, evidence that Kyle dismissed at the time but can no longer afford to ignore. Summer won't accuse Claire outright, not at first. She'll ask questions, observe reactions, and let contradictions reveal themselves, because she understands that the most dangerous liars often expose themselves when they feel cornered. And Claire, who has thrived on secrecy and calculated alliances, may start making mistakes under that pressure, misjudging how much Kyle is willing to overlook now that Harrison's safety is on the line. Meanwhile, the situation at JABOT continues to deteriorate in ways that reinforce Summer's fears. Despite the AI shutdown, damaging narratives continue leaking to the press, hinting at internal sabotage and leadership fractures. Investors grow restless, employees grow anxious, and Kyle feels the weight of responsibility crushing down on him from every angle. Victor Newman's smug detachment only fuels the sense that this chaos is far from accidental, and Summer will be quick to point out that Victor rarely stops at one attack. If JABOT is bleeding publicly, it's because Victor wants to weaken the Abbotts emotionally as well as financially, making them easier to manipulate when the next blow lands. That realization will push Summer to advocate for aggressive countermeasures, not just defensive ones, and that's where her influence becomes truly disruptive. She won't shy away from confronting Victor directly if she believes it will protect Harrison, even if Kyle worries that such a move could provoke retaliation. Summer has spent her entire life navigating Victor's world, and she knows that appeasement only invites further aggression. This philosophical divide between Summer's confrontational instincts and Kyle's more cautious approach will strain their interactions, but it will also force Kyle to reevaluate whether his current path is actually keeping anyone safe. Adding to the tension is the unresolved matter of Audra Charles, whose potential downfall hangs in the balance of Kyle and Claire's secret plot. Summer will inevitably uncover fragments of this plan, and when she does, she'll question not just its ethics but its timing. In a world already destabilized by Victor and Matt Clark, introducing another explosive reveal could have unforeseen consequences, and Summer will challenge Kyle on whether aligning with Claire on such a scheme is worth the risk. That scrutiny may hit too close to home, because deep down Kyle knows the Audra plot has always been as much about control as justice, a way for Claire to prove her loyalty while advancing her own agenda. Summer's involvement could derail that plan entirely, either by exposing it prematurely or by reframing it in a way that leaves Claire sidelined. And then there's Matt Clark, the looming specter who ties all these threads together. As Summer digs deeper into his movements, his connections, and his psychological profile, she'll grow increasingly convinced that he's escalating toward a breaking point. Matt isn't just targeting the Newmans out of spite, he's seeking validation, revenge, and relevance, and that makes him dangerously unpredictable. Summer will warn Kyle that men like Matt don't respond to subtlety or delay, they respond to forceful disruption or catastrophic failure. If Kyle hesitates too long, Matt may strike first, and the consequences could be irreversible. This sense of urgency will drive Summer to push for decisive action, whether that means relocating Harrison immediately, exposing Matt publicly, or cutting off avenues of leverage before he can exploit them. Each of those options carries risks, but Summer is willing to accept them if it means removing her son from the crosshairs. For Kyle, this creates an impossible emotional bind. He wants to protect Harrison, preserve JABOT, maintain his relationship with Claire, and avoid provoking Victor or Matt into something worse, but those goals are increasingly incompatible. Summer's